Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party Network. In this episode, I'm joined by actor Dominic Burgess to discuss his career so far, his appearance on Star Trek Picard's 5th episode, Stardust City Rag, and much more. So Dominic, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Lee. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's one of those things, we were just chatting off air there in we'll call it the Zoom green room, and I was saying that at the start of the year by interviewing Jeri Ryan, Michael Chabon, Kirsten Beyer about Star Trek Picard. So it feels nice to end the year with another sort of Star Trek Picard leaning kind of interview.
Well, I thank you. Here I am. Yeah, what a way to start the year, though. When did it, everything this year has felt like 25 years long. When, I guess we started airing in January?
Late January, yeah. Because it's amusingly, the Blu-ray is about to drop in late January in the UK, and it's 1 year, 1 day from the premiere. So it seems like Amazon have had this deal where it's like, you can't release any Blu-rays or DVDs for 1 year, and then 1 day after that embargo is lifted, people will be able to watch you on Blu-ray. We touched on it there that you're an actor. Has it always been your ambition to become an actor? Because while I'm speaking to you in Los Angeles just now, you're originally UK based.
Yeah, I was born in Stoke-on-Trent, and that's where I was raised and went to school. And no, I don't think when I was young I was interested in acting. I wanted to go to veterinary school for a little while, and then I started drama club at high school, and I think maybe I was 13, 14, and we did cabaret, and I was just in the background, and it was fun and it was silly, but I wasn't sort of emotionally invested in it. And then the following year, I got cast as Biff in a play called Death of a Salesman, and oh boy, that was it. I was hooked. So maybe from 15, 16, then I was really invested. And I went to a great school, but I've never been crazily academically minded. I always had to sort of work at science and physics and chemistry, and English I was always good at, and I could write, and I enjoy writing. But getting up on my feet and being creative, I think I was just excited about doing acting. You're immersed, and it's physical, and you're interacting with other people as opposed to writing and the intellectual side of things.
What were some of perhaps early films, theater that kind of inspired you? You thought, oh, I'd like to be that person, or God, that was such great work that I'd love to be in that industry?
Yeah. Oh man, it was Star Trek. I was raised on Star Trek and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and X-Files and Twin Peaks, all this sort of American programming that I was interested in. And so I've always, even when I was going through drama school, coming to work in Los Angeles in the United States was always the end goal for me, because that's what I was raised on. And then, since I've been in LA, I've been in Los Angeles for 13 years now, and I think things have changed a little bit now, and productions are international, and there's so much good British programming as well, that now my heart flutters a bit and says, oh, I'd like to do The Crown, and I would like to do Game of Thrones. And now, there's that sort of pull to want to come back to England and work a little bit. But yeah, it was those kind of shows. I would get out of high school, and I don't know how old you are, if you can, it's rude to ask.
No, I can tell because I've looked at your memory alpha, and you are 5 years older than me. I'm 33.
Okay.
Well, I'm very much relating to your TV watching experience for sure.
Yeah, I would get out of high school, and just as I was getting home at around 5 o'clock, Star Trek Next Generation would be playing on Sky One, and then sometimes like Wednesdays, I think on BBC Two, it would air on BBC Two at 6 o'clock, and so sometimes I'd watch episodes back to back, and then yeah, Buffy and X-Files and all that good stuff. So yeah, it was really that was the push to come to LA.
I'm thinking of it there when you're talking about those shows, because I felt I had a very similar experience. No, I didn't become an actor, but those were those kind of instrumental periods of exposure to sort of American TV, like the X-Files. I always remember that Sunday nights on Sky, Star Trek rotation on a Monday between Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and
boy.
But what I was kind of thinking there was, similar to kind of your career, you appeared in so many different American kind of TV shows. When I would watch those kind of shows, I would go, I recognize that actor on the X-Files. He was in a previous episode of Star Trek, or someone from Star Trek. Oh yeah, that's that person that was on Buffy, you know, whether it was someone like the mayor, that, for example, you could, there's so many actors we think, oh, I can see that, how that's a day job. It's not just being on Star Trek, it's being on Star Trek, X-Files, Twin Peaks. There's so many actors that fill so many of those kind of genre shows.
Yeah, I think I've been, knock on wood, incredibly lucky to be able to have a diverse career and to be able to jump from show to show. And I love genre TV shows, so I've been lucky to do Doctor Who, and I've been lucky to do Picard and The Magicians and all these fun kind of things. And to get to play in prosthetics, which is always a joy. So I've been so lucky not to be pigeonholed in any way. I get to jump around and play so many different things, which I'm so grateful for, and use different accents and meet so many wonderful people. And yeah, I don't know if I'd have stayed in England if I would have had that kind of diverse career, or sort of the wheels would have spun so freely. So it's honestly one of the best decisions I feel like I've ever made, moving to Los Angeles. And you know, at the time, I look back now and I think I was crazy because it was just me and my suitcase and a laptop, and I didn't know anybody. I found a hotel for a couple of nights. There's a website called Craigslist that has sort of rental listings, and I found a place. I had no idea what areas were good to live in, and fortunately I found a great area that I've sort of lived in for the last 13 years. So I've been very lucky.
It was a culture clash going from somewhere like Stoke it's famous for Alton Towers, to somewhere like Los Angeles, which is famous for film, everything like that. What's it like, you know, swapping the potteries for walking down sort of Hollywood Boulevard as an actor?
Funnily enough, mentioning Alton Towers, I worked at Alton Towers.
Oh wow.
That's my job for 2 seasons. Yeah. The first season, I was on vending machines, and so I loaded vending machines for summer. And then the following season, I was something called a magic maker. And so I would be juggling and doing poi and doing face painting and accompanying Baby Bear around the hotels in the park, which was a pretty good summer job in between drama school. But yeah, I went from Stoke, and then I was in London for 7 years before coming to LA. And London was not my city. I loved London while I was in drama school. And, you know, in drama school, you're working 10, 11, 12 hours a day. It's a full 8 o'clock in the morning with aerobics, and then you go to radio class, and then you go to voice class, and then you're in theater class, and then, you know, all this great stuff. And so we just go to London, central London on the weekend, and it was great, and it was fun and exciting. We go watch shows. And then when you graduate, and reality hits, and you have to get a day job to sustain yourself, and you're on the underground at rush hour, and, you know, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'5", and just squashed onto a tube to get into central London and huddled masses. Yeah. That was not my jam. And just the industry in London just wasn't for me. I didn't find it as welcoming as Los Angeles. And so when I moved to LA, I have a lot of friends that have tried Los Angeles and they don't like it. But oh man, I loved it. I loved it pretty much immediately. I jumped into acting classes right away. I got a day job at a movie theater right away. And so I built up circles of friends very fast, which was really nice. And I was working, 6-7 days a week at the movie theater and then going to classes in the morning. And when I first got here, it was there was a writer's strike, and so no TV or film was being made. And it was actually really advantageous to me because so many casting directors were holding general meetings or taking classes that wouldn't normally have the time to do that. So in the first 6 months that I was in LA, I met more casting directors in LA in 3-4 months than I had done in 7 years of being in London. And yeah, from then sort of the wheels just started spinning, which was really nice.
For those whose kind of first encounter with you was sort of Star Trek Picard, what's been sort of some of the highlights of your career so far? I mean, my first encounter with you as a person was Star Trek Picard, but then I kind of looked through your IMDb and it was like, I've seen Batman Begins, and I've seen Gilmore Girls. Well, my girlfriend had it on in the background, but I've seen Gilmore Girls, Modern Family, American Horror Story, Good Place. Like, this is just a sprinkling of some of the TV shows and work films that you've been on, to name a few. What have been some of your highlights and favorite experiences so far?
Gosh, I mean, Picard is right up there because I was such a big fan of Star Trek. And you mentioned Voyager and Deep Space Nine being on rotation on Sky One, and my dad and I would battle it out because he would like to watch basketball, which always tended to coincide with Deep Space Nine. So Voyager was the first show that I'd watched from beginning to end, as it aired, from pilot to finale. So that always has a special place in my heart. So then getting to meet Jeri Ryan on set was divine, and getting to meet Jonathan Frakes and getting to work with Patrick and getting to see them interact with each other and just being a part of that universe. I mean, Picard is really, it's really up there for me. That's like a dream job. The Magicians was so much fun. Again, it's another one where I'm in sort of 6 hours of prosthetics, but it meant that I could travel back and forth to Vancouver, which was a new city to me at the time. And the character is so fun and free and silly. Ma, again, was a great experience with wonderful people. It's directed by a guy called Tate Taylor, who is so warm and so giving. And I just did another film with him that we shot 2 years ago. It was supposed to come out this year, but it comes out on Amazon in January, called Breaking News in Yuba County, which is, again, another wildly fun experience. And through those guys in Mississippi now, I'm sort of writing and directing my own projects, and they are coming on board to help produce
Incredible.
a feature film that I'm getting going. So that's wonderful. Each job, even the jobs that you look at on the resume and think, oh man, Baby Geniuses 3, 4, and 5, which is the thing. It's what the world needed. But I was working for $8.25 an hour at a movie theater, and Baby Geniuses 3, 4, and 5 comes along, and they say, "Hey, you want to go to Alaska to work for 3 months?" Then, yeah, of course I do. And that's my Baby Geniuses 3, 4, and 5 story. But it's really rare to go onto a job and for me not to enjoy it. I just love being on set. I love sitting in Video Village. I love talking to people and just being a sponge and learning as much as I can about the process. So I've only had 1 or 2 instances, maybe 3, that have been objectively terrible.
Talking about sort of one of your positive ones you highlighted, when did you sort of first hear about the opportunity for Star Trek Picard and the role there? Was it something you were actively looking to get involved, or was it the tap on the shoulder?
No, I was actively gunning for it. As soon as they announced that Picard was coming back, I kid you not, I picked up the phone to my manager, who is this wonderful, I love my manager so much. She's so wonderful. We've been working together for 13 years, and I picked up the phone and I said, Picard is coming back. They're doing new Star Trek with Picard, and I have to do it. And it was a lot of investigating. We found out which casting office was working on it. I wrote a lovely little handwritten note to Liz Dean, who was casting it, and spoke to other casting director friends who'd worked in her office, and was very much like, I'll do anything. I'll be a sliding door in the background. I'll be a computer console. I'll be a rock. Anything. And then a role came along, and we got to go in and audition, and I overthought it because they weren't very forthcoming with information. You know, they said it's an alien species, and I was reading the material for the audition, pacing around my living room saying, well, it's going to be very different if it's a Cardassian than if it's a Klingon than if it's a Ferengian. And so then I was like, I don't know what to do. And I got into the room, and then Liz was saying, like, you're a lizard creature, and you're calm, and you're still. And they sort of filled me in there. And I'm so, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful to Liz Dean and UDK and that casting office, who, yeah, they're champions of actors, and I've been able to work on so many wonderful projects through them. And you know, it wasn't my best audition in terms of, normally I'm pretty good at auditioning and, you know, being focused and knowing what I want to do. But I think because it was Star Trek, I put so much external pressure on myself that it was like, oh my God, it's Star Trek and I've got to do a really good job. And, you know, you're holding on so tight and then you don't do your best work. But there was a lot of technobabble, and Liz let me try it 3-4 times. And yeah, I'm forever grateful. But I came away thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way I booked it. And then we booked it, and then there were tears.
when you get that phone call or email that you've booked it, how long is it then from booking the audition to, right, we need you up in sort of Los Angeles, you know, to shoot?
You know, it varies. Sometimes with films, it's a little bit slower. TV tends to move a little faster. And with Picard, I think it moved pretty fast because especially with this character, anything that requires prosthetics, they're sort of planning ahead, because you have to go in and you have to have the mold and you have to get the teeth molded. And I had to go to an optician so that they could fit the contact lenses. And so those wheels started spinning pretty fast. And then I think maybe it was a 2-week wait from there before that I could go back and they had done the prosthetics that they could test. And so I went for a test fitting for the prosthetics and the teeth, and they would shave things down and make them comfortable, and wardrobe. And that's where I first met Jonathan Frakes, after I had that initial prosthetic test. And he was in the cafeteria just eating his lunch, and an AD brought me in and said, "This is Dominic." And he stood up from his seat and flung his arms open and was, you know, very gregarious and fun, and welcome to the family. And oh my gosh, what a joy he is. So yeah, for stuff like that, it tends to move pretty fast. TV in general moves pretty fast. Usually you could book something and be on set the next day or within a week. And then for films, my experience with films has been maybe a month out or so, or the show that I'm working on right now was maybe 6 weeks out of coming to work on. But they had all their scripts in place already, and they had started before COVID and then got shut down. And so they had everything sort of ready to get back up again. So it varies.
What was that sort of first day on set like, from your alarm going off in the morning, especially with something like prosthetics? what time did you have to sort of get up, and how long, what kind of a day were you doing? Because I can imagine sort of all that prosthetic and makeup. You know, I've always sort of heard like interviews with like people like Ethan Phillips, etc. They're in there at 3 a.m, and before like your day players or whatever are in at like 6 or 7. How long was your kind of first day, and what was that first experience like on set?
You know, they are magicians. That makeup team, Neville Page and his crew are like legitimately crazy good. The makeup process for Mr. Vup was like an hour and 45 minutes.
Wow.
Which is incredibly fast given how detailed it is. So it was a foam cowl which just had my face exposed, and then they placed a prosthetic on top and just sealed it up. And it was kind of loose around the shoulders, and then the costume would go on, and my hands are foam latex gloves. So they just came on and off, so it wasn't a long, detailed work process on my hands. So timing-wise, it wasn't bad. It was, you know, I've been on sets. When I work on The Magicians, that makeup process was 5 hours, 5.5 hours. And so for that show, then I would be there at 3, 4 in the morning. And by the time I get finished, you know, it's sort of 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And then you have a full sort of 16, 17, 18-hour day. But the Star Trek days were, in comparison, pretty short makeup time. Jeri Ryan would be in there at the same kind of time, having her eye prosthetic and cheek prosthetic put on. So it wasn't bad at all. And, you know, I was so excited to be there, but you kind of learn when you're a guest star actor and you sort of have a nomadic existence and you're going from set to set, you sort of feel out the set and see if it's something where you can be open and talk, and if people are, you know, warm and welcoming. And it was such a warm, open set that any nerves of like, oh my god, it's Star Trek and we're going to do a good job, and oh my god, they were alleviated so fast. And honestly, Jonathan Frakes runs the warmest set. He's one of my favorite directors ever to work with. He's so open to play and experimentation and ideas coming from everywhere and keeping things upbeat, that it was just a joy. The whole thing was really, I know it sounds trite and like, oh my god, it was so much fun, but that's exactly what it was.
You get that impression when, you know, I think it's so different to probably when me and you were fans in sort of the 90s, where things were in a bit of a bubble about what the behind the scenes process was. And I'm sure you're the same. Like, you follow people like Jonathan Frakes, the cast of these shows on social media, and you see the pictures of Jonathan Frakes. It seems like a happy place to go to set. And I always, like, I remember sort of first contact for me was the first Star Trek film I was old enough to go see at the cinema. And I remember buying the behind the scenes book and reading about the making of it and learning about sort of how Jonathan Frakes was like as a director. He had this reputation as 2 takes Frakes, where he was very efficient, coming from that kind of TV background. What was he like as a director in terms of how he worked? You touched on it, giving the actors the opportunity to play, but was he still quite very efficient with time, or has he sort of grown really as a director from probably so that's nearly 20 years old now?
Yeah, very much. He was very efficient. You know, he knew what he wanted. He knew what looked good on camera. And I spoke to him about directing too, because that's, you know, an avenue that I want to expand on. And so I would sit in Video Village and I would ask him questions, and, you know, he'd say, if in doubt, shoot low and wide. And yeah, he was efficient. You know, sometimes you're on sets and things move really slowly, and he got a lot of coverage, but moved very fast. Yeah, he was great. And he would come and he was prepared, but also, when you get to set and you might find something new and say, oh my God, look at these windows. We should utilize this.
Mm-hmm.
Or figuring out blocking and say, well, how is Mr. Vup going to get from there to here? What do you think you would do? And he'd get the actor's input, and you'd say, like, well, I feel like if I was going to come around, I'd come around the back way right there. And just so open. Sometimes you get directors that are very much like, you're going to come here, you're going to hit that mark, you're going to do this, and everything is planned. But it felt collaborative, and it was fast. I think for Mr. Vup, I shot for 6-7 days. But the days were short, and between takes, we were filming in this sort of nightclub set up on Universal City Walk, and between takes, on some sets, everyone goes their separate directions and goes and sits in trailers. But here, everyone just sat on the couch, and Patrick would regale us with stories about his theatre tours in England. We spoke about Stoke-on-Trent for a while, and the Victoria Theatre and the Regent, and places that he performed, and accents and dialects. And Jonathan and Patrick have such a rapport that just to see those two together talking off camera, and it was just so warm and so friendly. I sound like a broken record of just gushing about how wonderful it is, but it is.
When I rewatched the episodes, I was kind of putting myself in your shoes, where Picard isn't a show that anyone has seen anything of yet. It's in a bubble. And what a weird bubble you maybe found yourself in, because they have this bizarre episode in a way where Picard is putting on this fake French accent. There's crazy hats, costumes, where I could imagine if that was someone's first experience with Picard, it would almost be like, what is this kind of show 20 years kind of later like? Especially when I can imagine you've not got the full script, perhaps. Everything is very limited. What was your kind of reaction as you start to watch things unfold where you're like, this is perhaps very different, or what kind of weird bubble am I in with this episode?
It wasn't too weird. I mean, I've been watching Discovery, and I felt like the tone from those 1980s, 1990s shows was going to be different and more serialized. But I guess, Star Trek has always had their holodeck programs and the Merry Men, and there are fun, silly episodes, and Captain Proton, and things that are more gregarious and out there. And so for me, it didn't strike me as weird, I think, because I know the history of Star Trek, and I know that 1 week you could be doing a spy drama, and then the next week it could be a silly romp, and then the next week it's a bubble episode, and you're contained on the ship, and the ship is twisting, and whatever it is. So yeah, I went into it fully engaged into like, oh cool, we're telling a heist story. Great, cool, let's do a heist story. Heist, sorry, I think I dropped my T both times there. So yeah, and I know when the episode came out, because it had been serialized to that point, that it shifted tones even within the episode, where you sort of have Icheb's eye getting taken out right at the beginning, and then it goes into this sort of fun romp, and then at the end you have 7 and 9 sort of going on this rampage and blasting people into atoms. So it did, within the episode, the tone shifted. But, I was just there to go along for the ride and just be engaged with it.
You touched on it earlier, working with Patrick Stewart and Jeri Ryan. I mean, you've hit the bucket load with this episode in terms of iconic legacy kind of characters. What was it like acting and playing alongside Patrick Stewart and Jeri Ryan as these iconic characters for a fan like yourself?
So fun, because again, you just touched on it, that he's putting on this big character, this French accent that is sort of laid on thick, and so I think Patrick was having fun with that too. He was playing, and Jeri was playing. Everyone was sort of immersed in making it as fun as they could. And so there was no, sometimes you get on sets and, you know, the series regulars are a little more standoffish or less open, and the only time you get to interact with them is when you go and you block the scene and you do the scene, and then everyone goes their separate ways. But again, they were so open and warm, and all it takes is a hello, nice to meet you on set in the morning, just to make all of those nerves melt away. And yeah, it was such a warm, engaging set. And it's the same with auditioning too, I find. If I go to, I mean, there's no auditioning in rooms anymore, everything's over Zoom. But when you would go and audition in the room, if a casting director is warm and open and like, oh my God, it's so good to see you, let's play. The key words for me are hearing let's play, and then everything's on the table. And sometimes you go into audition rooms and they're cold, and it's like, okay, here's what we need, and hit your mark and do it. And those are less fun. But when people are happy and warm and excited to be there and engaged, that's where I think everyone does their best work. Mm-hmm. When there's not this sort of tension and the need to be perfect every time. It's okay to make mistakes and play and explore, and yeah, that's just magic in itself.
Was it sort of a challenge for yourself to separate being a fan from being a professional in a role like that, or is it one of those things that just there's that little bit of being starstruck, but you know you're there to do a job, or is it one of those ones where sometimes you think it could be both? You know, I've been lucky enough in the past to interview people involved with Star Trek. My big thing I love is the behind the scenes people. That fascinates me. And I remembered like earlier in lockdown, I was so lucky I got the chance to interview Brandon Braga and Nicholas Meyer, which like part of my Star Trek Mount Rushmore. And I'm sitting there interviewing them, but then I'm almost thinking in the back of my head going, this is great, hopefully doing a professional job here. I'm thinking like, if I told my younger self that I'd be chatting over Zoom with Nick Meyer or chatting about Trek with Brandon Braga, I'd be like, I can't believe this. Uh-huh. What's your kind of reaction when you get that professional fandom moment kind of aligning?
You know, for Star Trek, I was very, I told Jonathan Frakes and I told Jeri Ryan that I was a big fan of Star Trek, and you know, I think that excitement sort of naturally bubbled to the surface. I think there was on one of the Star Trek Ready rooms that Will Wheaton hosts, there was behind the scenes footage that I don't remember, and I think Jonathan is talking to me and I'm, you know, in the full makeup and I'm sort of bouncing from side to side, and then little subtitles come up that I'm saying like, I'm living my best life. Just true. And so that was great. Because I think they experienced that too. I did an episode of Sunny in Philadelphia, I think in 2012, 2013, maybe it was 14. And I was such a big fan of Sunny in Philadelphia. That I feel like, you know, I was a little more intimidated when I got to that set because I loved the show so much. And, you know, we learn as we get older, but at the time, I think I was trying so hard to impress and fit in that I was asking questions that I already knew the answers to. And wait a minute, you guys write and produce this show too? That's crazy. And I knew, and I was, yeah, shame on me. But I've seen a lot of them since. I've seen Charlie and Rob and Caitlin since, and been like, oh my God, I wasn't a human being when I was on that set because I was just so excited to be there. And I think it's something you get, you know, the more jobs that you do, and not that it just becomes a job because I still love what I do so much, but yeah, Star Trek, I was very professional, but very excited.
What would you, when you came away from that, because I imagine there was still quite a few months away from sort of airing. I'm not too sure the time scale between sort of your episode and release, but you have this introduction, you know, online are probably still debating what's this show going to be like, what's it going to be. What did you come away thinking about sort of Star Trek Picard, and then how long did you have to wait before you got to, you know, see it as a show?
I think we shot in June before it was released in January, I think. And you know, it's one of those things, like, because it's Star Trek and all I wanted to do was talk about it, but you have to suck everything down and not say a word about anything, which is part of the job. So that was hard. But I came, you know, I think also one of the great things about Star Trek is there's a Star Trek for everyone.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that love the original series. There are people that love TNG. There are people, you know, Voyager is my show just because it was the one that I watched from pilot to finale week by week, and I went on the whole journey. And I love TNG, but when I would watch it, it was maybe an episode from season 2 and then an episode from season 6, and I didn't get the full arc until I went back to watch it afterwards. And so, you know, there are people that love Discovery, there are people that love Picard, and it's all great. There are shows for everyone, and if Picard is the entryway for someone to come in and watch the show and say, oh, what's this all about? I'm going to go back and retroactively watch TNG on Netflix or Voyager on Netflix and find out what Seven of Nine's story is. So I'm always very open to that. And, you know, even I was kind of skeptical when they announced Lower Decks, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And then I saved them all for a binge, and it's so fun. And I was so skeptical. And honestly, Mr. Badgie is now my everything. There's a Star Trek for everyone, and I think, you know, some people might not be fans or take like the direction that the story is going, but all the shows still exist. Voyager still exists. Deep Space Nine exists. So, you know, there can be Star Trek for multiple people.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, we've both been guests on Trek Ranks, for example, and I think that show has the right spirit because in like a few weeks, it's going to be the 800th episode of Star Trek. I mean, I remember the phrase where it's like, all Star Trek is above average. And that's something I subscribe to as well. Even a mediocre episode, I'm like, yeah, I liked it because it was Star Trek and it has this, this, and this. That's good enough for me. I mean, I loved Picard, Discovery, mad about Lower Decks. But, you know, I watched Picard with my girlfriend at the time, and she was like, yeah, I'll watch this weekly. I really enjoy that. But if I went to go, right, do you want to watch some Deep Space Nine or Voyager? Nah. But, like, it's the same. Deep Space Nine is my show. I watched Voyager religiously. I've just finished rewatching it. But it's probably one of my lower rated shows. But still, I can watch it, have it on in the background. You can't. It's very hard to be a show that length where it's something for everyone. There's always going to be different gateways for people, especially J.J. Abrams films, for example, too. Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's good for a show that's been going for 800 episodes to reinvent itself and to do something different and to do serialized stories or to do 8-episode arcs or 10-episode arcs. And yeah, why not?
Yeah, the success of it this year, they're in the midst of this 23 weeks of Trek, but this year we've had Picard at the start of the year, then Lower Decks and Discovery, 3 wildly different shows and tones, but that's avoiding the mistakes they made sort of in the 90s, 2000s, where everything became a little bit same, a little bit too much of the tone. Why not be wildly different? Like, you know, some people love Discovery, but then Lower Decks will bring in different fans, for example. Just, you know, go nuts, make it as interesting to watch for most of your year.
And I think this is just hearsay. I do not know anything official about this at all. But from, you know, forums and things that I've read, is that Strange New Worlds might be take more of an episodic approach. And, you know, the old format of week by week is a new story and a new adventure. So yeah, there's Trek for everyone, which I think is wonderful.
What was it like for yourself when you finally get the chance to watch your finished episode? Was it CBS All Access, midnight, tuning in? And then what was like your reaction? And then what was almost the reaction to you, that it seemed to be you were someone that everyone wanted to follow or chat about on Twitter afterwards? What was that kind of 24-hour period like from watching it to the response?
I mean, it's exciting because it's hard because I'm also watching as a fan of the show. That I guess that first episode to watch was a little different because then, you do judge yourself and you are watching with a critical eye. And then the second time through, you kind of watch and think like, oh, now like I can watch it as part of the story. I guess I'm less critical on performance in this show because there is so much in terms of prosthetics and teeth and contact lenses that it's a little easier to remove yourself performance-wise because you have to act through so much stuff, and a lot of it is kind of physical. So it was kind of an enjoyable process. I was just so giddy to be a part of that world. I'm still so giddy. I'm still so excited that I got to be a part of it. That it was, again, a joyous experience. Sometimes I watch things back and I think, "Lee, I wouldn't have made that choice, or I wouldn't have chosen that take." But no, I don't feel that with Mr. Vup. And then, everyone has been so nice about the character, and it's been so joyous in that regard too. People responding and hoping that he's not dead, and I don't think he's dead.
No, he just got stunned.
I think he has tough reptilian skin. But who knows? And the other great thing about Star Trek, I don't know, really if it's carried on to this new era of Star Trek. I really hope it does. When you do a character that is so immersed in prosthetics like that hopefully I could come back as something else, or a human, or a different alien, or something completely different.
Because you see someone like Kenneth Marshall, for example, that, he's been in multiple things, and Jeffrey Combs, like Star Trek, you go into people's, whether it's Memory Alpha or portfolios.
Yeah.
This, and this, I can't remember who it was the other day where someone was in a role like in the TV, but was also in Search for Spock and this and that. It blows your mind.
Tim Russ bounced around a whole bunch. Martha Hackett. Again, there's so many actors that jump shows and play different roles, and I think that's wonderful too. It feels like that old theater feeling where it's sort of a company of actors that does a different production and plays different roles each season. And if I get to go back, I get to go back, and if I don't, Picard will sustain my happiness for a long. Not that jobs bring happiness. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm just so grateful to have been a part of it.
Do you think with, like, as I touched on, sort of there seemed to be like, you're on social media, and it's very different, again, that kind of era of Star Trek before, where there would be a guest star, and if you wanted to reach out to them, it would be a fan letter, for example. Has it been quite great for you to sort of see people kind of respond to you, your character? And do you almost feel like, as you touched on, you are a fan and then you're an actor, and do you feel like people are like, there's that happiness for you of like, the fan done good, he's gone on and lived the dream in a way that many of us can only imagine to do? Oh
gosh, I don't know, but it is I love being as open and transparent as I can on social media, because it is selfishly, it is nice when people enjoy your work and what you do, and then it's a double bonus when it's something that you love as well. just I'm such a fan that when the X-Files reboot series came around, I had an opportunity to audition for that. And even though I didn't get it, just walking into the casting office and seeing the X-Files logo and me being like on my phone and like, I'm going to take a picture of the X-Files logo, is enough, just to be a part of, I don't know what I'm trying to say, just being in the game of it that sounds terrible. Yeah. And I do love that, the Twitter community and like you said, talking about it on podcasts like this and on Trek Ranks. And I actually restarted a Voyager watch a couple of weeks ago while I was in quarantine. And then I started listening along with Garrett Wong and Robbie.
How good is that podcast?
Oh my God, I love it so much. And so
you pay the Patreon version.
I do. Yeah, now I'm
That
Patreon.
is the best $3 that I've ever spending at the moment.
And now I'm in it, and listening to them interview people that I know and work with, and it's the acting industry feels so big, but once you get into it, it's so small. I had what I didn't mention, but I should have done a little further back when you were saying, are you kind of starstruck and whatnot? I did an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think back, when was that? Maybe 2014, 2015 too. And I turned up, and I was excited to be doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and be in the Marvel universe. And I turned up, and the director that was on the initial breakdown couldn't do the episode anymore. And I turned up on set, got into wardrobe, got taken to blocking, and an AD was like, okay, Dominic, this is Roxanne Dawson. She's the director. And that was such a system shock. And I was like, oh my God, it's right. It's Roxanne Dawson. And I didn't, but internally, I kept it very internal. But that was such a giddy joy for me. Yeah. And it was so casual on the part of the AD, but it meant so much to me and I think afterwards, at the end of the day, it was just one day, but I went up to Roxanne and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I'm a big Star Trek Voyager fan. Thank you. This is, oh my God, and she was so warm and gracious. But yeah, the industry becomes so small once you get into it.
Kind of naturally, your episode landed not long before the world shut down, really. Do you find yourself maybe thinking that you might take part in, when they come back, potentially like Star Trek conventions? I mean, it can't even be long now until you're like a collector's card or something as well.
Oh boy, I already did my collector's card signing.
Oh yes, I remember. I think I remember the picture actually.
Oh my gosh, yeah, which is exciting in itself. What a dream! I've never experienced that before. And they reached out and they were like, "Would you like to be a collector's card?" I'm like, yeah. And when we were on set, and I was talking to Jonathan, he was like, "Okay, get ready to go to the cruise, get ready to go to Berlin. You're gonna be doing the convention tour for life." I was like, "Okay, sure, I'll go travel the world and meet people." Yeah, who knows? Once everything opens up, that's definitely something that I would love to do. And again, I've been so fortunate to be part of really wonderful genre shows like Magicians and Picard and so Supernatural and so Flash, all these little genre shows that have convention followings. So yeah, I'd love to.
It's been a sort of challenging year for the performers and arts. How have things been for you in adapting to sort of the new normal for kind of, filming, whether it's Zoom interviews, bubbling for weeks ahead of shoots? And what do you think we can do for listeners and people like myself to support sort of the creative arts and talent like yourself during this kind of challenging time, I guess?
Gosh, that's a big question.
I can just ask you what your favorite episode of Star Trek is if you want to.
Gosh, knock on wood, I've been so fortunate. I've been so fortunate that right up until the lockdown, I was working. I did an episode of an Amazon show called Them Covenant, which is coming out soon, and then I did an episode of I was working on a Disney, sorry, not Disney, Nickelodeon. Shame on me. A Nickelodeon sitcom.
Star Trek Prodigy?
Oh gosh, no, I wish. But I'm so glad that Kate Mulgrew is coming back. I was working on a Nickelodeon sitcom. The day we started, we got shut down. I think that was in March. And then I handled lockdown pretty well. I think I kept indoors, and much like everyone, I think I had really productive days where I was writing, and hats off to me. I wrote a couple of pilots. One of them's not good. One of them's good. And then, I've been tinkering away with some feature films and writing competitions. And then I had really lazy days, and I binged. I did a whole X-Files rewatch. I did a Deep Space Nine rewatch. And then as things started to open up, I booked this TV show that I'm in New York for now for 4 months. I got here late October, and I'm going to be in New York through to the end of February, March. Right. On a show, which is really wonderful, knowing that Broadway is dark and the West End is down and closed. So I'm so grateful to be able to do what I love in times that are so difficult. And things have changed. Everyone's wearing a mask, everyone's wearing PPE, and we're in sort of face shields until it's time to roll cameras. And like I mentioned earlier on, when I'm on set, I'm a sponge, and I want to be sitting in Video Village and watching things, and that's all changed now. Everyone is keeping their distance, and everyone now is going back to their trailers in between takes. And so that's a little sad. And there's, the Zoom experience of auditioning is different. Normally, when you go and audition for something, you get the material and you prepare it at home, and then you travel to the audition, and maybe you're sort of milling around outside reading your material, and then you go to the waiting room and you sign in, and it's a process. And then you go in the room, and you're working with the casting director, and maybe they give you notes and adjustments. And now, if you're doing self-tapes at home, you're your own director, and you have your own lighting setup and your own backdrop and your own reader, and sometimes it feels like you're just sending your auditions out into the void and you don't hear anything back. Or the experience that I had on the show that I'm working on right now was, it was that initial self-tape, and then they sent readjustments, and we sent off another tape, and then we had a Zoom reading with the casting director, and then there was a fourth audition on Zoom with the writers and the producers. And I found with that it was a very odd feeling to have those audition nerves creep in your own living room. Whereas normally, you leave an audition room and it's like, okay, I'm going to get on with the rest of my day. But when it's in your living room and those nerves are creeping in, and I'm sure everyone knows, before the start of a Zoom meeting, you're kind of like waiting, and okay, and oh no, my microphone's not on, and no, got to turn my video on. Hi, everybody, can you hear me? Yeah. So it's an adjustment, but I think everyone's adjusting and everyone's getting used to the new normal. So everyone's in the same boat, I guess.
Yeah, so kind of, there's obviously going to be stuff that you can't talk about, but what's coming on the horizon for you that we can kind of keep our eyes open for?
Yeah, I think I can talk. The show that I'm doing right now is called Dr. Death, and it's based off a podcast of the same name, and it's coming to Universal Peacock. I don't know what it's going to be doing overseas or where it's going to be going, but it's based on a true story about a doctor who was, gosh, performing terrible surgeries on people, and some of his patients died, and some of them were left with life-altering injuries. So it's heavy material, but it's a wonderful project to be a part of. And then, as I was saying, Breaking News in Yuba County comes out in January, which is a fun, silly film with Allison Janney and Juliette Lewis and Aquafina and me.
Cast.
Oh my gosh, dream cast. And then this Amazon show, Them Covenant, which is going to be a horror anthology, I think. And I think that should be coming out sometime in 2021 as well. And then, yeah, who knows? I want to write and make something for myself again sometime next year, and just step behind the director's chair again and produce something. So who knows? We'll take it as it goes. I'm learning as I get older to let things go and take things as they come and enjoy it more.
If people want to keep up to date with any sort of news or releases or any of the kind of work that you're working on just now, where's the best place to follow your work or on social media?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. There's a lot of cat pictures. Hope you like cats. And I think on Instagram, I'm Dominic Burgess 1 on Instagram. Someone else got there first. Yeah, I think Instagram, I'm Dominic Burgess 1. And I think on Twitter, I am Dominic Burgess. I got there first. Yeah, that's it. That's where I'm mostly active. I don't have TikToks or Snapchats, any of the new kind of stuff. I'm kind of falling behind now.
God, I wanted to see some Dominic Burgess sort of dancing little videos or things like that. Oh, we've ended this interview on a low spot.
Oh no, but I hope you like cats, because Instagram is like every other picture is a cat. So you're welcome.
I'm allergic to cats, but I do always pop the pills when visiting my friends that have cats. So I've got a nice compromise there.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dominic. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk about your career so far, Star Trek, and so much more. And I'm so glad that things are working out for you just now. So all the best with the future, and take care out there.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.